All right, everyone. Welcome to another Nonprofit Enthusiast Live. I am so excited to be joined by Mr. Robert Jones today. Hey, Robert.
How you doing?
Good, good. Thank you so much for coming on. So before we get started, if you are joining us, just give us a hello, good morning in the chat box so that we know you are here. Tag a friend. We're going to continue the conversation on Giving Tuesday, Friendraising, and who knows, Robert, we might enter that accounting space conversation, right? Getting ready for the next year conversation. So definitely tag a friend into the chat box. Also, if you're catching us on replay, give us a hashtag replay so that we know that you are here. And before we get started, I always like to take a moment to thank our sponsors for making these conversations possible. So special thanks to this month's sponsor, Roots Art Store. If you're looking for personalized jewelry to show your loved ones appreciation, make sure that you check them out, and we'll definitely share the information in the chat box for you all to check out. So good morning, everyone. This wonderful Thanksgiving week, 1 week from today, from Giving Tuesday, which I know a lot of you are preparing for. So thank you once again for joining us. So Robert, we are going to jump right in.
Let's do this.
So before we get started, if you could just tell us a little bit about yourself and then just how you got into the field of serving nonprofits.
All right, cool. So I'm originally from Chicago. I still live here, actually. I've been in nonprofits pretty much my whole life. When I was a kid, I was in a 4-H club. That's pretty much my start when it came to nonprofits. When I went to college, I knew I wanted to be an accountant and in tax. I knew I wanted to do that. I just didn't know which form. And so when I started in the charity group at a Big Four firm, I knew that's what my passion was. So I would say for me, it's been something I've been involved in my entire life. And even I sit on a board of a nonprofit where I lead it, actually, the chair. I always, had that in the background, this accounting situation that I'm in. So I absolutely love it. And that's pretty much how I would say I got my start.
Love it, love it, love it. So this month we've been talking about Giving Tuesday. That's the big day, one of the big days for nonprofits every year, is kind of preparing to thank their donors, bring awareness about what they're doing within their organization, and in hopes of running various campaigns to bring in donations. In addition to, we've been talking about fundraising, the importance of cultivating and stewarding friendships that may turn into long-lasting fundraising type efforts. So just being intentional with your with your outreach and networking, that happens during the holiday season. What tips do you have just in any of those spaces when it comes to Giving Tuesday, fundraising? Do you have any tips that you can share with us?
When I think about, sending out letters of intent, right? Making sure you're not just kind of sending them out in hopes that it falls into the right hands, but actually knowing who to send those letters to. So, Giving Tuesday is strategically a few days after the Thanksgiving weekend for a reason. Because most families, especially wealthy families, sit around the table around that time, literally, and they talk about who to give money to from their family foundations. And so they also are in a window of opportunity, private foundations, that they have to give a certain amount by the end of the year. So I can go into a long discussion about that, but they actually have until December 31st to really talk about, okay, we still have to give away money. We're short, 50 grand. So, okay, all right, who wants to give what and to who? So those letters of intent, when they go out for Giving Tuesday, really should be people who are really interested in your purpose. And so that's really, really important. So if you love dogs, you may not want to send someone who loves, I don't know, birds,
That's me.
a letter, right? So, you want to really think about that. So that's one of the tips I would say is making sure that they're going to the right people.
Love it. So being intentional about who it goes out to, because sometimes it is easy to just say, let's just send out some of these posts, but are you targeting, is it reaching your target audience?
Right.
So in addition to that, you should be doing some things in the background that reaches those, drills into your targeted, donor.
I would also say too, when you write that letter, you want to say, you don't want to just say, we're sending you a letter because it's Giving Tuesday.
Hmm.
Our program does this,
Hmm.
this, but you want to say, we're trying to raise $10,000 for Giving Tuesday so that we can do this, this, and this, right? So it's very, direct, it's very intentional, and people will make a decision because they now understand and know what you're going to do with the funds.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Love. So you've touched on like, okay, so and I know we're kind of talking next month is going to be kind of going back to that conversation of year-end planning, but that's in a couple of weeks. I think we could talk about some of this. So you talked about foundations having to spend a certain amount of money by the end of the year. Can you talk a little bit more about that?
I sure can. So if a family private foundation has a year end of 12/31, their tax return was due November 15th, a private
Okay.
foundation. So the government spits out this number on the private foundation return. It's called required minimum distribution.
Hmm.
And that number tells them that they have 45 days from November 15th to December 31st to give away that much money. This is all public
Wow.
knowledge, believe it or not.
Yes.
So it tells them exactly like, okay, if you don't give this away, this amount away to 501c3 organizations, we will charge you a 30% tax. Now, private foundations don't want to deal with that. So
Right.
they're giving them a little bit of a wiggle room to say, you need to hurry up and pay this out.
Hmm.
If they do next year's taxes, it's going to show that they didn't give away enough and they're going to have a problem. So that's why attracting private foundations are really, really important. And most of them take care of the program services of the organization. But if you
Hmm.
talk to them and say, hey, we're trying to raise money so we can hire someone and a little overhead, they don't have a problem with that either. So you just have to, your engagement with these private foundations are really important.
So how would you say you find these private foundations in your area? Because I know a lot of them have a targeted, they have their own mission as well, just like how they have their own mission. So how do you find foundations that align with your mission and can kind of get an idea of what their giving pattern is to start building that relationship?
Good question. There is a website called Foundation Resources. I believe that's the
Hmm.
name of it, where you have to pay for this actually, but you go
Okay.
into that website and you put in your mission and you put in your area where you live and all of
Hmm.
that jazz, and it spits out a list of private foundations that are in line with what you are what your mission is. So now you
Wow.
really have a targeted list and one that's in your area where you can now engage those particular families. So that's one surefire way of doing that.
Look, is it the foundation center?
I think it's Foundation Center or Resources, one or the other. I haven't been on there
Okay.
in a while, but I know for a fact that is very successful.
That's awesome. And that's an area that oftentimes some organizations may not look into. You frequently think of, okay, let me go do maybe some individual fundraising, or let me go apply for some grants, but not think about the fact that there's funding also available through these private family foundations for your organization.
Very true. Yeah.
Awesome. So what's some year-end tips that you would give? Because I know for in your world, there's a lot of probably deadlines and all of that between this time leading up to like early next year that organizations need to start getting ready for. If you don't mind sharing some of those things.
Yeah. So let's just talk about it for a moment from the accounting side of things. So
Okay.
from the accounting side of things, your accountant should be working with you to start a budget for next year. By now, it should be approved by the board, to be honest. So the budget, having a budget in place, because what you want is someone to, as you're having these discussions, especially with these private family foundations, as you're having these discussions, they're asking you questions like, how much do you plan to spend on program expenses next year? And if you say, I don't know, that sounds like you're not organized, and it comes across as if you're not managing your funds properly. So that's one of the major things to keep in mind. Having a budget for 2023, knowing how much you're going to spend on program services, how much you're going to spend on management, and how much you're going to spend on fundraising. So those three expenses, those buckets.
So you said on program, management, and fundraising. Okay.
So here's a little trick to that, okay? If you know that your overall expenses next year will be about $100,000, just tell someone you're going to spend 90,000 of that on program services. So usually 90% toward the program, your expenses, and the other 10%, maybe 8% toward overhead, which is management, and 2% on fundraising activities.
Got it. Love it. Sorry, I'm putting some notes in the chat as we go, and I'm going to go over to the chat actually. And if you have questions, feel free to drop them in there. So we have, good morning, Shay. Hey, Shay, thank you. Hi, Martina. Thank you so much for joining us. Hi, Chuck. Good morning. Hi, Beverly. Thank you for joining us. If you all have questions, go ahead and drop them in the chat box because, and I'm going to talk a little bit about, so for me, so you all know that in addition to Nonprofit Enthusiasts, I have a nonprofit organization that I founded back in 2012, Love Our Youth. And we got to a point where, yes, I used to do all the accounting. In addition, so when I talk to nonprofits about wearing all those hats, I wore them too. And you know, when I was free of wearing those hats, I know the benefits of that. And then that's kind of Robert, how you and I connected, because Robert is our accountant for Love Our Youth. And honestly, it has freed me up of so much time. And a lot of those things. And on top of it, the expertise, like when you can hire experts in to kind of really work your organ in different places of your organization, so that you as the, whether it's executive director, founder, can really free up and focus on, you know, what you should be, such as the fundraising, the fundraising efforts, the governance, and so forth. I strongly encourage you to do this. And for us, it was definitely an investment being able to have an accountant and continuing to have an accountant in because it really lets us provide us and the board the opportunity to back up. And just instead of trying to be in the numbers and trying to, you know, get all of that, we're able to step back and really look at the numbers and kind of make decisions based off of it. So thank you, Robert, for that continuous support there. And I'm also telling others, you know, consider bringing an accountant on into your organization when possible, if you can, because it is, for me, it has freed up so much time and allowed us really to kind of look at our numbers, I guess, from like more, I guess that more CFO type hat of like, okay, what is this telling us? We're able to, like I said, we're not in the numbers, we're more able back up and being able to analyze the numbers in order to gauge everything else that we do, because that's how you get in a lot of trouble as well. Sometimes you're not studying your numbers, you're spending all of this, and then you find yourself constantly going out of your pocket for it, especially if you don't know, what's going on. So I don't know if you have anything, Robert, to add as far as the importance of why an organization should have, accountants in their organization.
Yeah,
no matter the size.
I agree. Thank you for that. So you hit it on the head, because sometimes I do hear that often where people will say, we're not big enough for an accountant. And I'm like, that's a very false statement. But actually, you may not be able to afford one at the time, but that doesn't mean you don't need one. So get that board together that you have, and out of the experts that you hire, that will, and I'm not saying this because I'm one, but that that one person, that accountant who specializes in nonprofits, let me say that as well.
Yes.
That one person could really shape the organization in a very large way. So, especially if they're providing, some education with it. And that's usually what we do. And you can attest to that, of course, for yourself. So
yep.
That's really, really important. For someone to to come in and say, okay, you spent a little too much here. You need to slow down. We have overhead. Let's figure this out, right? So having someone like that to kind of pull the reins back on you a little bit really does help.
Yep. And just to have those conversations, like, I don't know what we're doing wrong for the last couple of years, this is this, to be able to kind of have that expertise to say, well, have you all considered this? Or have you all considered looking into private foundations, or things like that. So I definitely thank you, Robert, for all that you do for love. And then also, so if you're working with nonprofit enthusiasts and you need counting support, this is who we're calling. So just so you all know. Just so you know, this is who we're calling on to help through those processes. So anything else you feel that organizations need to be doing as we get ready to wrap up this year and get ready for next year? And with something that I know oftentimes get missed, and it hurts me so much, is organizations, especially smaller organizations, because I feel like it's not on your radar as much, is filing your 990. Even if it's the 990 and postcard, it can and then next thing, a couple months or whichever years later, we find out that their status has been revoked because they have not filed their 990s. Can you talk a little bit about making sure that we put that on the calendar? A little bit about that.
That's important. That's so important. I know it's easy to forget. Especially if you don't have like someone kind of reminding you of those things. But if your year end is 12/31, your tax return is due by May 15th. If you do not prepare it, you can extend it to November 15th. So my biggest suggestion is not only putting it in your calendar that it's due around February. Just put it in for February, to be honest, because that's when the tax return is like produced for that year. So my biggest suggestion is start saving to have the 990 EZ prepared. The 990 EN is great because if you're under the $50,000 threshold in revenue, you don't have enough money to pay someone to prepare a 990. So at least you have that to stay compliant. However, I strongly recommend having a 990 EZ done because that allows you to brag about the organization regarding your program, service, account, and your numbers. Don't stress about the fact that you didn't raise $50,000 yet. Who cares? But put it on there. You're a new organization, especially if you're a newer organization, right? That's fine. No one's expecting you to bring in millions of dollars the first year unless you have a significant donor. But the catch is at least you'll have something to give those private foundations and individuals or corporations versus just I put together like a little spreadsheet with my numbers.
Right.
That doesn't look professional. So we want to make sure we are thinking from a professional standpoint and think about getting what I call real money. Right. If someone's giving you real money, someone's dropping $10,000, $15,000 at least, they're expecting some real financial statements. So just keep all of that in mind.
So when you talked about the 990 EZ, so organizations that's under 50,000, although they may file the 990 in, they can choose to file the 990 EZ instead.
That's correct.
Okay, got it.
Yeah.
Love it. And then Tamika says, are there any resources for how to complete the 990 EZ?
Yeah. On accountant. No, what? I'll tell you this: the form can be a little intimidating because it's long and it's actually more legal language than there are numbers. So it can be a little intimidating. I wouldn't dare tell you that you shouldn't do it on your own if that's what you choose to do. But just keep in mind that tax return is like a resume. So if it's not presentable, you may run into an issue. But from a resource perspective, the IRS website definitely has some nice guidelines. The instructions are on there to help you fill it out.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah, the IRS does have different guides for all of the forms, I believe, on there that can help you. But then you have to also take a moment and kind of think, as far as the different things going on in your organization, do you want to learn how to do all of this, or do you hire someone in to take care of that portion so it frees you up to focus on, okay, this is our fundraising efforts for this year. This is how we're going to do meet some of our goals, and doing a lot of that strategy. So also think about that. And honestly, over the years, that's something I had to think. Even now, we've been in existence for over 10 years, and I feel like every month I'm still thinking about these different type of strategies. Is this something that we should be doing, or even our team should be doing right now? Or is this something we need to bring someone else in to assist with, to help us move a little bit more? Because I have to balance that with our team, because some areas is not our strengths, individually and collectively. And it's like I had to get to the point of, okay, well, if it's not our strength, yes, we can spend out, and that's what would happen. We spend hours trying to figure it out and learn it, and then come to find out we still missed a part, or we can just bring someone in. And I'm not just saying that because I always tell you all it's better to have others kind of work alongside you, and that way you can really focus in on your strength. And that's just really good practice to have, to free up time for your organization. So Tamika said, yes, that's a good question, because I find myself dealing, yes, it's hard, and it's like and what I tell organizations to do is write everything that you're doing down. And sometimes it might just be you as the founder, executive director, or it might be your entire team. And if you take a look at that and kind of put them into different buckets, like let's say, for instance, your marketing person writes all of their tasks down, you find out half those tasks have nothing to do with marketing communications, then you might need to pull those tasks from under them and either put it where it belongs if you have someone that oversees that, or bring on someone to take care of that piece so everyone can truly work in their strengths. So yes, it's a constant question. I have to continue, and it's 10 years later, and still kind of that, what do we need to let go of, and what can we take care of in-house? Yep, love it. Awesome. So if you all have any questions, again, drop it in the chat box. I think we're good. So I know we're getting it ready for year-end planning. Some of the tips that was shared throughout the conversation, checking out private family foundations in your area. And I feel like that's the area that's often overlooked. Taking a look, if you're an organization with the 990N, maybe considering calling Robert to help you out with your 990EZ this year, and also making sure that you put that on your calendar, because a lot of times, and we actually have a blog coming out about 6 ways you can lose your tax exempt status, and that's one of them, by not filing your tax returns. And it's one of those things that can easily get forgotten, and there is nothing like working in your mission and then come to find out that you are no longer a 501c3, and then having to go through that process. Yeah. That hurts.
To reinstate it, you really do start from scratch, literally.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, let me see what hold on one second. My video timed out. I just want to make sure that we're in. Give me 1 second. Okay, there we are. Oh, we're back. Okay, sorry about that, you all. I'm not sure what happened. I think Zoom is on Thanksgiving break already. So anything, right? Anything else, Robert, that you think? I know we covered a lot. So we talked a little bit about Giving Tuesday. We talked about Friendraising. We talked about being intentional with Giving Tuesday. As you're going out there and running your different campaigns, we are 1 week away. If you need some resources, you'll see in the group pinned at the top, you'll see some of the Giving Tuesday resources there. Last week's conversation, Deb came on and talked about Giving Tuesday. You could check that out as well. So definitely check those resources out and make sure that you do something for that. Other than that, do you have anything else, Robert, before we close out today's session?
Yeah, if you would like, I do free consultations. If you would like to have a consultation, that, number one, it's free. And number two, Lashina know this, when I speak with people, it's not necessarily to have you sign up with me. My goal, especially with nonprofits, is to point you in the right direction to find the right person. Now, if you decide you want to hire, that's up to you. But definitely, if you have any questions, please let me know. And the best way to reach me, I'm on Facebook, as all of you are now, and so it's just under Robert Jones. But definitely let me know if you have any questions.
Love it. And I'm going to tag you also into this so that way people can find your Facebook easily. There we go. Awesome. All right. Well, thank you all so much. Thank you, Robert, for coming on. We definitely got to have you come back, especially the top of the year as we get, if you have some time, because I know how it gets a little crazy around the time, but especially as tax season. Okay, awesome. That would be awesome. So before we end today, okay, Martina said, I would like a consultation. So Robert, you said just go ahead and send you a message.
Yeah, so or you can go to the website. There's a Calendly link on there. The website is rptaxassociates.com. rptaxassociates.com.
There you go. Okay, I put it in the chat, Martina. You should see that. Okay, there we go. Yeah, it loaded. Awesome. So you can schedule your call there. So I put that in the chat box. So before we head out, I just want to give a few updates. One is, so we will be having another ACEs training, and we'll go ahead and drop the link where you can register for that ACEs training. So ACEs stands for Adverse Childhood Experiences. We partner with ACEs Matter to host this. I strongly encourage you all to check it out. The biggest thing about ACEs is it allows you to kind of see how your adverse childhood experiences can impact the way that you serve and how it impacts those that you serve. Our last session last month, we had such a great response that we not only challenged everyone that joined us to bring a friend the next time, but we're also challenging you all to do the same. So please check that out. Register for that upcoming ACEs training. Again, in case you missed the memo, next Tuesday is Giving Tuesday. So make sure that you prepare and do something for your organization. And I know we're like a week away, but even if it is just doing a small awareness campaign or something, just do something, and then next year continue to build on the action and build it into your 12-month schedule for next year, so that you don't get caught in this year. So definitely doing that. And then other than that, wishing you all a happy Thanksgiving, that you all enjoy that time. Take that time, relax. I get it. As nonprofit professionals, we're always on go. Let's take that time and build memories for Thanksgiving. So thank you all so much for joining us. Thank you again, Robert. We definitely got to get you scheduled for early 2023 to come back on.
Let's do it.
Awesome. Okay. All right. Thank you. Bye, everyone.